There comes a moment in your life when everything you endured in silence starts to make sense, when the pain you carried alone, the betrayal you never spoke about, and the delays that confused you all begin to connect into a bigger picture you couldn't see before. You thought people were getting away with what they did. You thought your life was stuck while others were moving ahead. But what you didn't realize is that nothing was ever ignored and nothing was ever wasted. Because in ways you could never control, your patience was building something powerful, and at the same time others were being given enough rope to reveal who they truly are. And now, as your life begins to shift, as doors start opening and blessings start approaching, something else is also happening quietly in the background. Everything that was unfair is starting to balance itself out. And what comes next will prove that your silence was never weakness. It was preparation for something far greater than what you went through. You need to understand this clearly. Even if it was hard to believe before, nothing that happened to you was ever overlooked or forgotten. Not a single moment of unfairness, not a single word that hurt you, not a single time you were left alone when you needed support the most. Because even when it looked like nothing was happening, everything was being seen and counted with perfect awareness, and the silence you experienced was never a sign that it didn't matter. It was a sign that things were being handled in a way you could not yet understand. Because there is a difference between an immediate reaction and a perfectly timed outcome, and what is unfolding in your life now is not late. It is exact, it is precise, and it is arriving at a moment when it will have the strongest impact. Because while you were being pushed to grow, to control your emotions, and to become stronger through your pain, others were being given time to reflect and change. Yet many continued on the same path, thinking there would be no consequences, not realizing that every action builds up over time and eventually returns in a way that cannot be avoided. And now, as things begin to shift, you will start to see clearly why everything had to happen the way it did, because the delay was not denial, it was preparation. And what is coming into your life now, along with what others are beginning to face, is the result of a process that was always in motion, even when you thought nothing was happening. There were so many moments where you felt the urge to speak up, to defend yourself, to explain your side, and to expose what was really happening. And honestly, you had every right to do so, because what you went through was not easy, and it deserved to be acknowledged. But something within you held you back. Something told you to stay quiet, to step away from reacting, and at times it frustrated you because it felt like your silence was allowing others to control the narrative. Yet what you didn't realize is that your silence was not weakness. It was a form of control and protection that most people never learn. Because reacting in the moment might have given you temporary relief, but it could have created long-term damage. It could have pulled you into unnecessary conflict, lowered your standards, and distracted you from your own growth. But instead, by staying silent, you preserved your energy, your focus, and your direction. And over time, something powerful begins to happen, because when you don't constantly defend yourself, people start to observe more closely. The truth begins to reveal itself through actions. Patterns become clear, and those who were paying attention start to understand without you having to say anything. And now, as things begin to shift, you will see that your silence didn't make you invisible. It made your position stronger, because you were not fighting for validation. You were allowing time to expose what words never could, and that kind of strength is rare, controlled, and impossible to break. At one point in your life, it truly felt like things were being taken away from you one by one, whether it was opportunities you worked hard for, relationships you invested your time and emotions into, respect you believed you had earned, or even your inner peace that once made you feel stable and secure. And in those moments, it didn't feel like a lesson or a redirection. It felt personal, it felt unfair, and it made you question why everything you tried to hold on to seemed to slip away at the exact time you needed it the most. But what you couldn't see back then was that not everything that leaves your life is actually a loss. Because sometimes what feels like removal is actually protection, and sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a necessary clearing to make space for something that truly belongs to you. Because if certain things had stayed, they would have limited your growth, drained your energy, or kept you tied to a version of yourself that you were meant to outgrow. And that's why the process felt painful, because you were not just losing things, you were being detached from what was no longer aligned with your future. And now, as you stand in a different place mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually, you are beginning to realize that what left your life could not have supported the person you are becoming, and what is now entering your life feels different. It feels more stable, more genuine, and more aligned with your growth, because it is not something you are forcing or chasing. It is something that fits naturally into who you have become, and this is where everything starts to make sense, because you finally understand that you were never being emptied without reason. You were being prepared to receive something better, something stronger, and something that is not meant to be temporary. And that is why what is coming into your life now will not feel like something you are afraid to lose. It will feel like something that is truly meant to stay. It is very important for you to understand this clearly, so your heart stays clean as your life begins to change. Because when you start seeing people who once hurt you, betrayed you, or ignored your pain begin to struggle or lose what they once had, it can create mixed emotions inside you, but you must not see it as revenge or something to celebrate, because what is happening is not about you getting back at them. It is simply the result of their own choices catching up to them over time, because every action a person takes, whether good or bad, carries a consequence that may not appear immediately, but will always return in the right moment. And history has shown this pattern again and again, even in the lives of the prophets, where truth was tested and patience was required before justice became visible. For example, Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a well, separated from his family, and later imprisoned despite being innocent. And for a long time, it seemed like those who wronged him faced no consequences while he continued to suffer. But eventually, everything turned. He was raised to a position of honor and authority, and the same brothers who once harmed him stood before him in need, facing the weight of what they had done, not because Yusuf, peace be upon him, sought revenge, but because time revealed the truth and allowed the results of their actions to unfold naturally. And in the same way, Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, faced oppression from Pharaoh, who believed his power would never fade, who caused harm without fear of consequence. Yet when the moment arrived, everything he relied on collapsed in a way he could not escape, showing that no matter how strong someone appears while doing wrong, their position is never permanent. And this is the pattern you are witnessing now in your own life, on a smaller scale, where people who once thought they could act without accountability are beginning to face the outcomes of their own behavior. And your role in this moment is not to lower yourself by holding on to anger or bitterness, but to stay focused on your own growth and remain grounded, because just as their actions led them to where they are, your patience and restraint are leading you to where you are going. And if you protect your mindset now, you will not only rise above what happened, but you will also ensure that what is coming into your life stays strong, stable, and free from the negativity you have already overcome. There was a time when the delay in your life felt unbearable, when you kept asking yourself why things were not happening for you, even though you were trying, improving, and staying consistent, and it felt like no matter how much effort you put in, you were stuck in the same place watching others move ahead while you remained in a cycle of waiting. And that waiting slowly started to test your patience, your confidence, and even your belief in your own path. Because when results don't show up, the mind begins to question everything. It begins to wonder if the effort is even worth it, if the direction is even right, and if maybe you are just not meant for something greater. But what you couldn't see during that time is that the delay was never empty. It was not wasted time, and it was not a sign that nothing was happening. It was actually one of the most important phases of your entire journey, because while nothing was changing on the outside, everything was changing within you. Your mindset was evolving. Your emotional strength was being tested and refined. Your discipline was being built in silence, and your ability to stay focused without immediate reward was being strengthened in a way that most people never experience. Because many people can stay motivated when they see progress, but very few can stay consistent when they see nothing, and that is exactly what separated you, because you continued even when it was hard, even when it was confusing, and even when it felt like you were not getting anything in return. And that process was shaping you into someone who is not dependent on quick results, someone who does not break under pressure, and someone who can handle both success and struggle without losing control. And the reason this was necessary is because if everything you wanted had come to you earlier, you would not have been ready to handle it. You might have misused it, taken it for granted, or lost it just as quickly as you gained it, because without the internal growth, external success becomes unstable. But now you are different. Now you think differently, you react differently, and you carry yourself differently, because the challenges you faced forced you to develop awareness, patience, and self-control, and those qualities are what will protect what is coming next in your life. And when your opportunities finally begin to appear, you will notice something powerful. They will not overwhelm you, they will not confuse you, and they will not feel out of place, because you have grown into the kind of person who can recognize, accept, and manage them with clarity. And this is where the delay reveals its true purpose, because it was never about holding you back. It was about building you up to a level where what you receive matches who you have become, and at the same time, the delay also protected you from rushing into situations, relationships, or opportunities that were not right for you. Because sometimes what we want in the moment is based on limited understanding, and if we receive it too early, it can lead to outcomes we are not prepared for. But by slowing things down, you were given the chance to see more clearly, to understand yourself better, and to develop a sense of direction that is based on awareness rather than impulse. And this is why now you are more selective, more focused, and more intentional with your decisions, because you are no longer chasing everything. You are choosing what aligns with your growth. And that shift alone is one of the biggest signs of how much you have evolved. And another important part of this delay is that it taught you how to be alone without feeling empty. Because there were moments when you had no choice but to rely on yourself, to sit with your thoughts, and to face your own emotions without distraction. And while that felt uncomfortable at first, it slowly built a level of self-understanding and inner strength that cannot be easily shaken. Because when a person becomes comfortable with themselves, they stop seeking constant validation from others, they stop depending on external approval, and they begin to move with confidence that comes from within. And that kind of confidence is not loud or forced. It is calm, steady, and unbreakable. And as you move forward, you will realize that this internal stability is far more valuable than any external success, because it allows you to remain grounded no matter what changes around you. And this is exactly why your journey had to unfold the way it did, because it was not just about giving you something, it was about preparing you to keep it, to grow with it, and to use it in a way that benefits your life long term. And now, as things begin to open up, you will start to see that the delay was not a punishment, it was a process. It was a period of construction where every challenge you faced added another layer to your strength. Every setback taught you something you needed to know, and every moment of doubt pushed you to develop a deeper level of belief in yourself. And when you look back, you will understand that if any part of that process was removed, you would not be who you are today, and you would not be ready for what is coming. And this is why you must not regret the time it took, because that time was not taken from you. It was invested in you, shaping you into someone who is not easily shaken, someone who does not rely on luck, and someone who can move forward with clarity, purpose, and control. And as your blessings begin to arrive, they will not feel like something temporary or uncertain. They will feel stable, earned, and aligned with your growth, because they are not just opportunities, they are a reflection of the person you became during the delay. And that is why what is coming into your life now is different, because this time you are ready for it, not just to receive it, but to sustain it, grow it, and protect it in a way you never could before. There was a long phase in your life where everything you were going through happened quietly, where your struggles were not visible to people, where your pain did not have an audience, and where your effort was not recognized or appreciated in the way you thought it should be. And during that time, it felt like you were invisible, like no one truly understood what you were carrying or how hard you were trying just to keep moving forward. Because on the outside, things may have looked normal, but internally you were dealing with pressure, confusion, setbacks, and moments of deep self-reflection that most people around you never even noticed. And that is what made it even more difficult, because when your struggle is hidden, it can feel heavier, it can feel isolating, and it can make you question whether it will ever lead to anything meaningful. But what you couldn't see in that phase is that hidden struggle carries a unique kind of power, because it forces you to build strength without relying on external validation. It teaches you how to keep going without applause, and it develops a level of discipline and resilience that cannot be faked or borrowed from anyone else, because when everything is stripped away and you are left with only your effort and your mindset, that is where real growth begins to take place. And over time, all those quiet moments where you chose to keep going instead of giving up started to shape you into someone different, someone more aware, more focused, and more grounded than before. And even though it felt like nothing was changing on the surface, internally you were building a foundation that would eventually support something much greater. And this is where the shift begins to happen, because there comes a point where what was once hidden can no longer stay hidden, where the results of your consistency, your patience, and your growth start to become visible in ways that people cannot ignore. And suddenly, the same effort that went unnoticed begins to show through your progress, your mindset, your presence, and the way you carry yourself. And people who once overlooked you start to notice a difference, not because you are trying to prove something to them, but because real growth naturally reveals itself over time. And this is what makes your rise different, because it is not based on temporary attention or surface-level success. It is built on a deep foundation that was formed during your hardest moments. And that is why it will last, because anything built in silence tends to be stronger than anything built for attention. And as your life begins to open up, you will start to experience a new kind of recognition, not just from others, but within yourself, where you finally see how far you have come, how much you have changed, and how capable you have become. And this internal recognition is more powerful than any external validation, because it gives you confidence that does not depend on other people's opinions, and it allows you to move forward without constantly seeking approval. And at the same time, you may notice that some people who never supported you before suddenly begin to acknowledge you, to show interest, or to question how you reached this point. And while that may feel strange, You must not let it distract you or change your mindset. Because your journey was never about proving anything to anyone else. It was about becoming the person you needed to become through your own experiences. And this is where you need to stay grounded. Because when recognition comes after a long period of being unseen, it can affect your focus if you are not careful. It can pull you into seeking attention instead of continuing your growth. But you have to remember that the same discipline and humility that carried you through your hidden struggles are the same qualities that will protect your visible success. Because rising is one thing, but maintaining that rise requires the same mindset that built it in the first place. And this is why your journey had to include that hidden phase. Because it taught you how to move without needing constant acknowledgement. It taught you how to stay consistent even when no one was watching. And it showed you that your progress does not depend on how many people notice you, but on how committed you are to your own path. And now, as your efforts begin to show, and your life starts to shift in ways that are visible, you will understand that nothing you went through was wasted. Every quiet moment, every unseen struggle, every time you chose to keep going when it would have been easier to stop, it all contributed to the position you are stepping into now. And this is why your rise will feel different, because it is not built on shortcuts or luck. It is built on time, effort, patience, and growth. And that kind of foundation creates something that is not easily shaken, something that continues to grow even when challenges appear again. And as you move forward, the most important thing you can do is stay connected to the version of yourself that existed during those hidden struggles, because that version of you is the reason you are here. That version of you is what built your strength. And that version of you will ensure that what you are building now continues to grow in a stable and meaningful way. And when you truly understand this, you will stop seeking recognition as a goal and start seeing it as a byproduct of your growth. Because the real reward was never just being seen. It was becoming someone who is strong, aware, and capable enough to handle whatever comes next. And that is exactly who you are now becoming. Now you are entering a stage in your life where things are finally beginning to shift in your favor, where opportunities that once felt distant are slowly coming closer, where doors that stayed closed for so long are starting to open, and where situations that once felt stuck are now starting to move with a natural flow. And after everything you have been through, it is normal to feel a sense of relief, excitement, and even emotional release, because you have carried a heavy period of waiting, confusion, patience, and silent struggle. And now life is beginning to show you signs that your effort was not wasted. But what you need to understand very clearly is that this moment is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a completely new phase that carries its own challenges. Because receiving blessings is one thing, but maintaining them is something entirely different. And this is where many people unknowingly lose what they were given, not because the blessing was taken away, but because they changed when it arrived. Because when life becomes easier, when things start to work out, and when comfort begins to replace struggle, a person can slowly lose the discipline, focus, and humility that they once had. And without realizing it, they begin to drift away from the very habits and mindset that brought them success in the first place. And this is why your current phase is extremely important, because everything you have gone through until now has prepared you to receive. But what comes next will test whether you can handle what you receive without losing yourself in the process. And this is not a punishment, it is simply the natural continuation of growth. Because every level in life carries its own test, and the test of this stage is not pain or struggle. It is awareness, gratitude, and consistency in ease, because it is easy to stay focused when life is difficult, but it is much harder to stay grounded when life starts to improve. And that is where your real strength will now be measured, because the same patience you showed during hardship must now turn into gratitude during ease. And the same discipline you built in silence must now protect you in success. And as your blessings begin to arrive, whether in the form of opportunities, relationships, stability, recognition, or personal growth, you must remember that none of it is random, none of it is accidental, and none of it is permanent unless you handle it with care, because blessings are not just rewards, they are responsibilities, and how you treat them determines how long they stay in your life. And this is where self-awareness becomes your greatest protection, because you have to constantly remind yourself of who you were before the change, who you were during the struggle, and what it took for you to reach this point. Because forgetting that version of yourself is the first step toward losing balance, and many people who rise quickly end up falling just as quickly because they disconnect from their foundation. But you are being called to do the opposite. You are being called to rise without losing your grounding, to grow without losing your humility, and to succeed without losing your awareness. And that requires a level of internal discipline that is even more important than the discipline you needed during hardship, because now the challenge is not survival, it is stability. And stability requires constant reflection, constant gratitude, and constant alignment with your purpose. And as you move forward, you will also notice that not everyone around you will understand your new phase. Some people may begin to treat you differently, some may return after ignoring you, and some may only show interest once they see your progress. And this is where your emotional maturity will be tested, because you must learn how to filter people based on sincerity rather than timing, and not allow external attention to distract you from your internal growth. Because your journey is not about reacting to people, it is about continuing to build yourself regardless of who comes or goes. And at the same time, you may also feel a temptation to rush, to expand quickly, to chase more than what is necessary, or to let excitement override patience. But you must remember that anything built too fast without grounding often collapses just as fast. And that is why steady growth is more valuable than sudden change, because what grows gradually is usually stronger, more stable, and more sustainable. And this is exactly what you need now, not just success, but lasting success, not just progress, but controlled progress, and not just opportunity, but the wisdom to manage it properly. And as you continue moving forward, there will be moments where you are tested in subtle ways, not through hardship, but through comfort, through distraction, through ego, and through the opinions of others. And how you respond in those moments will determine whether your blessings remain or fade, because this stage of life is less about what you receive and more about how you carry what you receive. And if you stay consistent, grounded, and mindful, you will notice that everything you once waited for not only arrives, but begins to expand in ways you never expected. And the most important realization you will eventually come to is that your journey was never just about reaching this point. It was about becoming someone capable of sustaining it, because true success is not defined by arrival, it is defined by endurance. And now that you are here, your greatest task is not to chase more, but to protect what is already coming into your life, to stay connected to your purpose, and to ensure that every blessing you receive becomes a source of stability rather than distraction. Because this is where your real story begins, not in the struggle that shaped you, but in the strength that will now sustain you. Conclusion. So when you look at everything you have been through, you start to realize that none of it was random, none of it was wasted, and none of it was without purpose, because every delay, every silence, every loss, and every moment of confusion was slowly shaping you into the person you were always meant to become. And now, as your life begins to change, as your blessings start to arrive, and as things that once felt impossible begin to open in front of you, you must carry this understanding with you that your journey was never just about surviving the hard days. It was about becoming strong enough to handle the good days without losing yourself. Because true success is not only about receiving what you prayed for, it is about staying grounded when you receive it, staying grateful when life improves, and staying connected to your purpose when everything begins to move in your favor. And while you may see others facing the results of their own actions, and while you may witness situations balancing out in ways you once only hoped for, your focus must remain on your own growth, your own stability, and your own mindset. Because what is coming into your life now is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter that will test not your patience in pain, but your discipline in ease. And if you can remain humble, consistent, and aware of who you are and where you came from, then what you are stepping into will not only be temporary relief, it will become lasting elevation, because the same strength that carried you through the silence is the same strength that will now carry you through success. And this is where everything truly comes together, where what was once unseen becomes visible, where what was once delayed becomes delivered, and where what was once tested becomes transformed into something that finally reflects the journey you endured with patience and quiet faith.